Hey everybody, welcome to Sex is Medicine, your #1 resource for holistic sex education. And can I just give a huge celebration for the fact that we have won the podcast Sex is Medicine has won the 2021 ASECT Award for Live Web Series. So thank you so much to all of the people at ASECT for honoring the work that we've been doing, myself and all my wonderful colleagues who have appeared here with me. And yeah, wow, never in a million years thought that would happen. So that was a nice surprise. I'm Devi Erickson, if you haven't figured that out already, and I am delighted to be here with some of my friends and colleagues and Tantra soulmates, Tantra playmates. Up in the upper left-hand corner, we have the lovely Rosie Bitts. Lower left-hand corner, we have Lucia Vasquez. Did I say it that right this time? I keep wanting to put an L in there.
Yep, you said it correctly.
Awesome. It's funny because I can read names, but then when it comes to having them come out my mouth, I always mess them up. And then we have, of course, the wonderful Karen Craig from Explore Tantra. And Karen's also a Tantra Mastery and Certification Instructor with the Institute. So we employed her. Judge Karen, we put her to work. So today is our monthly episode of Ask a Sexologist. So this is, I believe, our first month this month, April. We got a late start, but we have some amazing questions that you have sent to us, and we are so excited to answer them. So please continue sending your questions because it gives us content for these episodes, and we just really enjoy answering your questions, and we appreciate the faith and the trust that you put in us by asking us to answer them. I can talk, I promise. So tonight we're going to just dive in. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to invite our guests, just for those of you who are not familiar with Rosie, Lucia, and Karen, to just give a little blurb and your website so people can learn more about you. Rosie, are you open to starting?
Absolutely. Hi, I am Rosie Bitts. I'm based in Victoria, BC, Canada. I am the body love and sexuality queen. So I'm all about body love and sexuality and, sensual movement, all that juicy stuff. You can find me at www.rosiebitts.com.
Yay, awesome. And Lucia, tell us all about you and where we can find out more.
Yeah, sure. I'm Lucia, and I am located in the San Francisco Bay Area of Oakland. And I am currently working with individuals and couples. And I specialize in working with those with traumas, sexual abuse, exploring sexuality and disabilities. Mm-hmm. And you can find me on my website, which is embodiedelements-wp.com.
Awesome. Wow. Wonderful. And Karen, tell us all about you.
So I am Karen Craig, and
I was correct.
And as Devi indicated, I work for the Institute as a Tantra Mastery Instructor, Certification Instructor. Absolutely love both of those things, working with students. Along with my husband, we also teach individuals, we teach men, we teach women, we teach people no matter how they identify. We teach couples, and we work from we're actually physically located in Atlanta, but we work by Zoom. We also do retreats, except not during COVID. But we do retreats and workshops all over the world, really. So you can find me at exploretantra.com, and all of our social media platforms are Explore Tantra.
Yay. And we are going to have a hell of a retreat when COVID is over. Just saying, it's probably gonna be like a year of retreats. All right, so here we go. We're going to dive into these questions. So number one, so I have this very long question. We'll start with a very long one that a wonderful person sent to me on Instagram. Now, just so you listeners know, I prefer to get questions via email. So if you have a question, send it to connect@authentictantra.com. I will miss your Instagram questions for like months and months, and then eventually decide to check the the folders for old messages. So anyway, so here it is. Here's one of these. So hi Devi, I just discovered you. I'm wondering if there was any chance I could ask you for some advice. So I have asked lots of so-called professionals, and nobody really has an answer. So she's hoping maybe you might haven't answered. So that's why I wanted to bring our team of experts here, because I think this is beyond just one of us. So many years ago, I had to have a full hysterectomy. So that is the womb and the cervix were taken. It wasn't something she wanted, but was practically forced upon her. Sadly, that happens, and I'm so sorry to hear that. So it has left me unable to orgasm, climax properly. I just get left with a weak sensation. Even the buildup is nothing like it used to be. I used to even be able to have a nipple orgasm, and that has long since left me, along with the hysterectomy. The only small pleasure I get now, weirdly, is my belly button. I find that if I rub it and poke it a little bit, it can feel delicious. Unfortunately, I'm single and I have no way to stimulate it other than by myself. Although it feels really nice, I'm still not getting all the sensation I used to have pre-hysterectomy. So basically, I'm asking, would you know if there's something out there that I could buy to help me reach proper orgasm? Again, either via my belly button or yoni or nipples, or maybe even some tips. So this person is just asking if after this hysterectomy, if there's a way to bring her orgasmic sensation back. So what are your thoughts?
I can start.
You go, Karen.
I mean, first of all, I just appreciate that very vulnerable question, because that's unfortunately a situation a lot of women encounter, and feeling that they were forced.
Yes.
That it wasn't really consent, their consent really wasn't given. And so because of that, a lot of women experience a lot of grief around that. Yes. A lot of grief, a lot of loss, a lot of shame, and guilt, all kinds of feelings. And some of it depends on where they are in terms of their having given birth. If they haven't given birth yet, that's another layer of loss for them. So one of the things is really like dealing with that, is, and the practices that are taught through the Institute help to deal with those losses. They refer to the womb actually as the lower heart. So it's a big deal, energetically, it's a big deal for a woman to lose her womb. At the same time, it's not a loss that it's like, okay, this is awful, this is never going to come back, I'll never get the sensation back, because there really is what's called an energetic womb. Yes. And there can be just as much life and vitality in that space as in the physical womb. So, I mean, that would be the first thing I would recommend. And then I know when the cervix, because I actually did some, I had a student who had dealt with this, and I had, having read about it, and I didn't have personal experience. So I actually talked to a couple of women who had experienced it, who were sexologists and who were trained in this modality. And so they gave me some insight. So I'm very appreciative of that, and have loved the idea that I can share it. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that was recommended is, there's in the vagina, the actual vaginal canal towards the cervix is an A spot, the anterior fornix erogenous zone. And then on the back side of the vagina is the P spot, the posterior fornix erogenous zone. When the cervix is taken and those two areas actually merge together, and apparently that can, like the merging singly, they're wonderful orgasms, but together, apparently, like they are just sort of mind-blowing. So when a woman doesn't have a cervix, she actually gets something from an orgasmic perspective that's even better than perhaps what she had.
Wow.
So yeah, which is, I mean, the silver lining in, an otherwise difficult situation. So that's one of the things. And then what I would recommend is that a woman use practices like, for example, with OAP, orgasmic awareness practice, really just focusing on connecting with herself, connecting with her own, because one of the losses is that sense of femininity, like who you are as a woman. And so reconnecting with yourself, make a date with yourself, bring some candles and some smell good stuff in. And, it doesn't matter whether you're single or coupled, this is work you do by yourself anyway. And then of course you can do these things with a partner, but it's really important to connect with yourself. Yeah. So, you know, really like stroking your face and your eyebrows and your earlobes and your hair and like literally every part of your own body. And that's part of what starts to create that connection or recreate that connection that's been lost. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, I could go on, but I want to leave space for everyone else to respond.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for all of that, Karen. Do you guys want to contribute anything?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go. So yeah, I have a family member or a couple of family members actually who had to get this procedure done. And it is a really, it's a huge thing. Takes a really huge toll on your body. And so just understanding that it can take several weeks for your body to heal. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, just keeping in mind that, you know, to take your time and understand that it's okay. You know, it's a process, right? And that can cause some numbness there, even from the actual experience, or how Karen was saying, you know, through the grief, you can experience vaginal dryness, which can create pain, as well as the numbness. And so, so taking extra time and understanding that it might take you extra time to become aroused. And so making sure you're using water-based lubricant. And in the modality that we teach, as Karen was mentioning, is the genital massage. So, you know, using the genital massage on yourself and taking your time with getting to reconnect with yourself there in your body, that kind of letting go of that fear that, you know, you have lost a part of yourself, I think is definitely a huge one as well. And so just taking your time to reconnect with yourself and stay present within your body and making sure that you're setting your intentions of, you know, I know what had to take place, but now I'm going to start affirming myself that I can reconnect with my body on another level, right? And so I've actually heard a few people even they become even more sexually aroused and more in tune with their body. Also because there's parts that are now removed, and so there's a little bit more, there's more space there, yeah. Right? And so you can actually feel more sensations. Mm. And it's a process, so it's gonna take time. It's normal for you to feel as though your libido has lowered, and especially if the ovaries have been removed. I believe you mentioned it was the cervix that was removed, right?
Well, what this person said, it was a full hysterectomy, so uterus and cervix, and usually with a full one, they take your I believe they take your ovaries and your fallopian tubes too.
Okay, so then if the ovaries were removed, then your libido might be lower because of these hormones that are no longer present from the release of the with the ovaries. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, just take it as a time to opportunity to explore. Yeah. Right. So explore yourself, explore your genitals, explore having your partner explore with you, you know, and try out and test out different toys if that's, you know, something of interest for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all that wisdom. Rosie, do you want to add anything to the hysterectomy conversation?
I'll just add a little bit. And I have to say, you know what, I love these talks because I learned so much.
I know.
So juicy. I'm like, I want to be taking notes. So I just want to add also remembering the breath. Yeah. Right? Utilizing the breath to really get into everything that Lucia and Karen were talking about. And I love this idea of her belly button becoming an erogenous zone, right? And I think when you utilize the breath, you can really bring that sensual awareness to different places in the body.
Yeah.
And from my experience, at least, that's where like full body orgasms or no touch orgasms happen, right? It's often in connection with the breath.
Yeah,
So I would
beautiful.
say this woman is in a beautiful space of starting a new journey of sexuality.
Yes. Yeah. Gosh, we don't think of that when it comes to hysterectomy, right? The societal dialogue is it's the end. When in actuality, if we understand how the energy body works and even how all the nerve pathways work in the pelvis, it could actually be the beginning of a whole new chapter of our sexual awakening.
Yeah, totally. So I'm like, yeah, kudos, go and explore, have a new, a realm of sexuality available to you.
And the only other thing that I would add is the mentioning of the weak or low-grade pleasure, low-grade orgasms. So your orgasmic function is governed by what are called your downward voiding winds. And those govern everything that we retain and excrete from the lower end, including orgasms. That's an expansion or expression of energy. And so when the quality of the orgasm is low, it's usually an indication of weak or impeded or blocked downward voiding winds. So one of the best remedies for that is yoni yoga, pelvic floor exercises. We teach a practice called power wind exercises. So all those things that are going to build the muscular structure of your pelvic floor in a healthy way are also going to build the energy body of the downward voiding winds. So just wanted to add that. Okay. All right. So moving right along. Okay. So next question, because we were talking about sex toys. Can you get addicted to your vibrator? Oh, this is very controversial. So who wants to start?
I can jump in.
Great.
So I would say, hell yes. And I never want to take a source of pleasure away from anybody. Right. So when I'm working with clients who, a lot of my female clients are only having orgasms from a vibrator.
Wow.
Right. And I want people to have pleasure, right? No problem. Like have the pleasure. But what I try to work with my clients around is finding not just that vibe orgasm, but also what else is available to them. And is that orgasm, your sex toy orgasm, taking you away from all the other types of pleasure that are available? So I don't want to take it away. I just want to add in. I want to enrich. I want to start filling in all the other spaces of pleasure that could be available.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you for that. Who else?
I love that, Rosie, because like women have the capacity, yoni owners have the capacity for at least 11 different orgasms, different types and flavors of orgasms. So the toy orgasm and the toy experience is just one. So, I love that idea of exploring. It's like going to the ice cream shop and they've got the 32 flavors and you only eat one, and so, it's really like expanding that. So you're like trying out all these different things and maybe using toys. I mentioned or tools, I mentioned the A spot and P spot. It's difficult to access those without some kind of like, honey dipper wand or something like that, one of those lucite wands. And so just exploring, like Rosie said, expanding, it's not about contracting and constricting and no, you shouldn't do that. But it's like, okay, what else is there available? What other areas, and not even being wedded to and chasing one sensation. Because even with the, what you were saying, Devi, about the woman who wrote in about the hysterectomy, the idea that like she's sort of experiencing like little flutters or something. Well, those could be orgasms, but she's not recognizing them that way because she was accustomed to one type of orgasm. So this is like, as my colleague said, expanding that and, the adventure.
Yes.
And venturing into like what else is there.
Beautiful. Thank you. What are your thoughts, Lucia?
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting subject. It's definitely very normal to use a vibrator, to reach orgasm. But, just keeping in mind too, that we want to balance, right? And maintain a healthy overall, and just knowing and understanding that we are literally wired for pleasure, and there's so much that we can be doing, so much that we have to learn. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there are many that don't know all of the orgasms. There's just a number of what's on the surface of things. And then there's, the ones that we're just not aware of. And I was definitely one of them. I definitely was not aware of all of our body parts and where all of our nerve endings are and why we have sensations there. And so you could even, I know in my own experience, even with not only the use of the vibrator, but the use of just my hand, right? And in the moment, I know what I used to do in the moment of doing, self-pleasure. I remember even being able to have these multiple orgasms, one right after another, because the more you keep doing it, the more easily it becomes. But noticing that if you're doing it very frequently, you could also feel some kind of it becomes a little numb, right? And then if you realize that when you are actually in sexual union with a partner, the constant pressure that's going there will also cause a numbness. And it's simply because you're consistently putting pressure there. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like if you put pressure, if you've been like this, right, for example, and you get a little bit numb there, either where you're putting pressure at. If you let go and you take a break, the sensations will come back. Yeah. And so just knowing and being aware that, that you have a lot of options there and you have a lot of opportunity to do your exploration, and, it's okay to take breaks.
Yeah. Oh, that's really great. And so in terms of being addicted to your vibrator, so one of the things I was reading is the term addiction is really inappropriate in this context, because addiction implies like a coping mechanism, in order to cope with trauma. Essentially it's what we know addiction is, right? And so in terms of your vibrator, what most people probably mean is a dependence upon the vibrator. And so can you develop a dependence upon your vibrator? Well, actually, in the book Vagina by Naomi Wolf, there was a doctor, Dr. Jim Faust, a researcher and professor of psychology in Montreal. And he said the human spinal circuit will habituate to the same repeated stimuli over a period of time. And thus vibrators may desensitize women due to this natural habituation phenomena. So what that means is when your body gets accustomed to one specific vibration, kind of like what you were saying, Lucia, when it adapts to it, then it may desensitize, right? So you kind of need to change things up, which is why they have pulse patterns on vibrators. That's exactly why. The other thing that I do want to point out in terms of vibrators and desensitization is I had this experience in the last year that really brought this home to me. Is I'd been like brushing my teeth with a manual toothbrush like most of my life. And then I got this electric toothbrush, like some super duper hooty dooty one. And like the first time I used it, it was like my gums were so sensitive. It was like torture, right? And it took using it over like about a week for my gums to desensitize enough in order for me to comfortably brush my teeth. Well, that's my gums. Imagine your clitoris. Right, so you've got this high, hard, vibrating thing on those nerve endings, and just like remember the first time you've ever used a vibrator, like whoa, it can be, intense. And there is some belief that the high vibration can desensitize the very sensitive nerve endings on the glands of the clitoris. So the question is, does that mean you shouldn't use them? Well, ultimately, that's up to you. My orientation is the more the better. In terms of like, let's bring everything to the party and use it skillfully and mindfully. The other thing about vibrators, and again, I read a lot at like 1 a.m. Sometimes I don't always remember to bookmark my things, but the information sticks in my brain. And so one of the things I was reading a couple of years ago was keeping in mind when we're talking about clitoral orgasms, because usually when we're talking about vibrators, we're talking about clitoral vibrators or vibrators that you're going to use on your vulva. Usually when we're using things internally, we refer to them as dildos, and those can vibrate or not. But most of the time when we say vibrators, we're talking about clitoris. So what this author was saying was that if we keep in mind that a yoni owner, someone who has internal erectile tissue, so someone who's internal erectile tissue, that those stages of arousal and how it takes up to 45 minutes to be fully engorged. Like 20 minutes is just the first stages of full engorgement. And then it's like a balloon. It just continues to go more and more. But if you're using a vibrator that's going to pop you off in 2 minutes, then your body never gets to experience that full arousal cycle. And so you don't actually get the full benefits of the hormones and chemicals and neurotransmitters that are generated through sexual pleasure and orgasm. So that's just something to keep in mind. But again, that comes to like, does that mean we never use a vibrator? No, it's using it skillfully. It's knowing what works for your body. And if the only way your body can orgasm right now is through using a vibrator, awesome. And we would just encourage you to, again, use breath and mindfulness and maybe other practices that Karen and Rosie and Lucia can teach you to help expand your experience of pleasure. Because it's not about either or. It's about how can we have everything? I want it all.
Well, and I was going to say too, what I've found fascinating that since I've been doing tantric practices, I actually can't, or it's very hard for me to orgasm with the vibrator now.
Yeah.
Like my whole genital area is like sensitive and on fire and juicy, and it's just too much direct stimulation at this point in time. So like that's my hope when I work with clients, is that they will come to a greatly expanded place, and maybe they will never throw that vibrator out. That's neither here nor there. If it's bringing them pleasure, awesome, keep it in the toolbox. But they'll like really expand that pleasure so that they can go, when they go to their genitals or other parts of their body, that pleasure is already peaked. Like their body is ready for it, right?
Yes, and I love that. And so just to put something in your brain pocket, audience people, so here's my favorite use of vibrators. After I've already had several vaginal and maybe a few clitoral orgasms, and it's like 40 minutes into my lovemaking session with my partner, and then I'm use the vibrator to bring a little extra stimulation because the fingers and the tongues and the penises have already kind of maxed out. So now we're bringing a vibrator because my fingers are tired, and so is his tongue. That's skillful means. So I guess the actual answer is, can you get addicted to your vibrator? Potentially, maybe. And there's lots more to explore. So even if you do really have a dependency upon your vibrator, that doesn't mean it's the end of the road for you. And there's more. There's always more. Yay. Okay. So then, okay, so let's talk about the benefits of ejaculation for men. So here's another question that came in. So about semen retention, is there any kind of benefit if you ejaculate inside a woman? Like, can you transmute that energy or only to an egg? So like when you ejaculate inside of her, can you give her your energy? Or do you only give it to the egg? And if she's on the pill or not ovulating, is there any benefit for her from a man ejaculating inside of her? So basically, do we as yoni owners receive benefit from semen? What do y'all think? Have you ever received some benefit from a semen that didn't come in the form of a baby?
I'll jump in. Everybody's being quiet, so I'll jump in again. Hell yes. I would take all the semen all the time. Why do you think I look so young at 46?
Exactly. Bring it. Facials.
Give me that semen.
She's a semen demon.
Totally. Like, if it wasn't, I encourage all the men that I'm involved with, all my male friends, to be semen retaining because it's for their health and their benefit. But if I could just have that semen all the time, I would take that semen all the time. There is so much benefit for us hormonally energetically, I think it boosts the immune system. Like there is a list if you look that shit up, and it just is beautiful. Like it is my preference if I'm making love to have my partner ejaculate in me.
Mhm.
And it's my preference for my partner to be very healthy. So he also needs to know how to be semen retaining for his own well-being.
Well, and also semen retention is the key to separating orgasm from ejaculation so that dudes can be multi-orgasmic.
Yeah.
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 Right on. What are y'all thoughts about benefits of semen?
Yeah. Well, there's a good, like 90% are nutrients. Having a hard time getting out. 90%, a good 90% are nutrients, and like the other 3 to 5% are the actual sperm. So, you know, we are definitely absorbing those nutrients, and then if you are retaining, those nutrients are then getting recycled into your body, and that's really good for you as well.
Mhm.
It also, when retaining, it's also you are, or actually, I'm sorry, not when you're retaining, when you can reduce the chance of getting prostate cancer when you're having healthy ejaculation, because the ejaculating the semen from your body prevents the buildup of those particular cancer cells.
So I'm going to pause you there because I have read this study and it is inaccurate. So this is good because I'm going to ask you if semen, if one of the functions was ejaculation, was to clear carcinogens out of the male prostate, what happens when those carcinogens go in your vagina?
That's a really good question.
Right? That's bullshit. That's the idea that men are coming into their socks, and so it's just waste. That is bullshit. The human body is not going to ejaculate toxins. Semen is baby batter. Babies aren't made from toxins, so they're not going to ejaculate toxins into your vagina, and what you're just going to transmute their cancer cells. That's such utter bullshit. So I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at that fucking study. And the study also said it is absolute bullshit. The study, what they found in the study was that men who ejaculated, however many times a week, may in some cases, it may have indicated in some cases, lower instances of a certain type of prostate cancer. But they also found that men who didn't ejaculate at all had lower instances of that specific type of prostate cancer. And they also didn't know if it was the men who were ejaculating frequently, if it was because that their health results were a result of being in healthy relationships, having lots of sex, because that's the other thing. If you're depressed and fucking miserable, you could get prostate cancer, right? So I am slamming that study because I have read it through the years every time it's republished, and I've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb with a doctor to assess if what the media says it says is accurate, and it's bullshit. It is not, it has not proven, that study did not prove that frequent ejaculation is good for men's prostate. And the idea that they're coming, their cancerous toxins into my pussy, fuck that. Anyway.
Well, yeah, no, that makes sense when you put it that way.
Cancer now, because my man's ejaculating every day. Fuck you, media. My dog agrees. She's like, fuck you. Anyway, hey, Karen, you want to follow up on that?
Sure. I don't know if I can follow up on that. But I can respond to the question. So, I mean, my orientation is semen retention. I teach semen retention. I have a husband who practices semen retention, and it's been all like wonderful for me, practicing semen retention. But what I love about semen retention is that it does separate the ejaculation from the orgasm. So then, you know, it's like Rosie was saying, there are things that she likes about a man ejaculating in her. So then it becomes volitional. Like the two of you can actually decide, okay, yes, I would like for you to ejaculate in me today. Or he can say, I would like to ejaculate, you know, in this session together.
Mhm.
Or we can be like, you know, hell no, no ejaculation. We're just gonna, you know, because without the ejaculation, the man really is multi-orgasmic, so you can go for an indefinite amount of time almost, because he's experiencing orgasm, but the party's not over because the ejaculation has occurred. So, I mean, it really gives a man, it gives a couple the opportunity to really be in choice, which I think is like the whole, that's when you have all this expansion, is when you're actually in choice. So I don't know if I answered that which way I answered it, but.
Well, that's beautiful. That was a little segue, but it was an awesome one. And I love that is being able to ejaculate by choice, not by reflex. And so is there a benefit for us yoni owners in receiving semen? Hell yes. As Rosie was saying, there's vitamins, there's nutrients, there's hormones, it's balancing for our hormones, it's bonding. Talk about feeling that like oxytocin bond. You know, I jokingly call it my monthly inoculation. So ejaculating specifically inside the vagina. The vagina is some of the most porous tissue on the body. So we're going to absorb those nutrients, those hormones. And then in Tantra, we talk about different essences, like the male essence and the female essence. And it's very binary in traditional Tantra because they're talking about the actual sexual organs and the way these essences are produced. And for cisgender heterosexual women, it is considered very healthy in Tibetan medicine to absorb male essence in the form of semen. And it's considered very healthy for cisgendered heterosexual men to absorb female essence from penetrative intercourse. Now, unfortunately, there haven't been historical studies that I'm aware of on the effects of, you know, non-binary and transgender and essences and all of that. But one of the things that I think of and love about the Eastern traditions is that they at least the ones we've studied, is that they view sexuality as a form of nourishment, right? And so just like when we eat food, like if we get cravings for stuff, it's usually an indication that the body's wanting those nutrients. Right. So like if I'm craving sushi, you know, every day for a week, it's usually because there's something in the sushi that I need. So I've transferred this to kind of thinking about like non-binary, homosexual, transgender kind of situations where there's going to be a mixing of fluids. And it's like, well, if I have a yoni and I really crave and like desire, want to be fed, nourished by sex with another yoni owner, it's because I need those essences. Or if I'm, you know, a lingam owner and I'm really craving sex with another lingam owner, it's because I need those essences. So it's less about, you know, the intellectual understanding of male essences and female essences, and really, in my opinion, what the body's yearning for and what the body's craving. Because when there is a fluid exchange, I mean, even when there's not a fluid exchange, there's an exchange on the level of the energy body. But when there's a fluid exchange, a physical fluid exchange, you are literally mixing essences. You are literally, you know, bonding. You're chemically bonding with each other, and that is healthy when we're doing it with healthy people, healthy relationships, and from the standpoint of, you know, I want to say love, but that doesn't mean romantic love. I mean like kindness, consideration, mutual value, mutual appreciation, and however that's expressed through you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you guys want to add there?
Yeah, just that there is a definite energetic exchange there. You know, and I used to struggle with that a lot in my experience. And for me, it was because simply of finding a partner who was actually being fully connected in that present moment. When there is a huge disconnection, I was not able to feel any kind of an exchange of any kind. And so learning, you know, some of the practices here with the modality that we teach definitely built that presence and that awareness and being able to stay present in the moment.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, exactly. It's like, that is such a huge piece. So there's a physical exchange, which is what a lot of Western, you know, the approach is, but in the holistic approach, we're looking at what kind of energy, what kind of emotion, what kind of consciousness is being shared. And again, no judgment, it's like some people want, really lovey, tender things. Other people want to be beat up, and that's the way they like to exchange and share their energy. And that's all wonderful. When we're doing it mindfully and consciously, from my point of view, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's what is the motivation? Where is it coming from? Because someone else's yuck may be a yum for me, and my yum may be a yuck for somebody else. And the phrase I learned when I first landed in Victoria way back in 2010, Rosie, was don't yuck someone else's yum. Don't yuck my yum. Yay. Okay. All right. So then our last question is about the 4 different types of yoni owner emission. So for people who have internal erectile tissue, we're calling you yoni owners, because not every yoni owner is a woman. So the 4 different types of yoni emission. So that's something that we teach at our school, that our bodies, our internal erectile tissue bodies, are capable of producing lots of different fluids that are signs and indications of orgasmic pleasure. And so people are wanting to know what these are and how do you know if you're experiencing them. So what is the first type of yoni emission that you guys can think of?
I want to say my favorite is cream of woman.
Yeah! Cream of wheat. Cream of wheat, but cream of woman.
Cream of woman, or cream of yoni owner, we should call it.
Yes, cream of yoni owner.
Cream of yoni owner, and that is like thick, glutinous white substance. Usually, well, the yoni owner is in like a high state of arousal. That often happens for me, like after many orgasms, or at least a couple of orgasms. It's not like the first off the bat ejaculate.
Yeah, and thank you for that one. And it's referred to in the Taoist tradition as cream essence of woman. Again, very gendered and binary because of that tradition, but it's like the yoni owner's body produces the creme de la creme de la creme, right? And it's just like so rich and delicious and full of all kinds of yumminess. Yeah. So what's another kind that you guys can think of?
Gushing.
Gushing. Tell us about gushing, Lucia. Are you an expert?
Yeah. I get this one a lot. It is a clear, water-like liquid, fluid that comes out. It's like a sudden rush of fluid. That's a vaginal emission, and it's coming possibly from the vaginal walls. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, if you are experiencing that, that is what it is. I definitely get that a lot, which I did not know what it was before. And I was like, what?
Damn, what just happened?
I used to think, that it was just some of the essence of the ejaculate, and had no idea that it was my own secretion. So it is very wonderful to know.
And the important distinction between like gushing and squirting that we make is that gushing comes from the vagina. So when I was the first time I was like really cognizant of the gushing, like I'd done it before, but like really like, oh wow, this is a thing from a different orifice. Is I had this one partner and I was doing a female superior, so I was ratting them. For those of you who are interested in visuals, imagine this. So I'll set the stage. No, anyway, but just kidding. So he was like, just to be totally crude, he was like, yeah, I could feel it, dripping down my cock onto my balls. It was like a waterfall, right? And like, so that's if you've ever like created a waterfall on your partner's lap, that's your gushing. There we go. Yay! All sex therapist here. Let's talk about cockaballs. Okay. So next one. So those are the vaginal emissions. So both the cream and the gush come from the vaginal canal. What comes out of the urethra? Karen, pop quiz.
So there's squirting.
Yes.
Which is from the urinary bladder. I think of that as a projectile emission. And then from the periurethral sponge, it's like, maybe a teaspoon or so. It's not a whole lot, like kind of clearish white. And so that's from the periurethral sponge, which is really like sort of wraps the urethra.
Yep.
which enters the bladder. So,
which is also referred to as the female prostate, or internal erectile tissue prostate.
Yeah, or the G-spot.
Or the G-spot. Yeah. Yeah. Yay. Awesome. So our bodies can produce all these fluids, and there could be more. This is just, we're looking for lab researchers. So if you'd like to volunteer, we'll let you know when you can
But one thing I would say about it is what I call the politics of female ejaculate. And that's that idea that, sort of like women are either shamed because, they've wet the bed, even though it's not urine. They've been, there's the suggestion that, oh, well, you actually peed on me. Mm-hmm. Or a woman will be afraid to do that because she feels like it's pee. Or the whole porn culture where it's like, there's this, okay, so now, you're not really doing it the way you're supposed to be doing it because you haven't shot it across the room. So it's like this whole, like, still like women kind of being in bondage to this idea of what they should and shouldn't be doing, what it should and shouldn't look like from the male gaze, from the male perspective, instead of, this is what our bodies do. And so we're like celebrating however your body, your yoni, your emissions show up, is wonderful, as opposed to this goal-oriented, oh, now I failed because, I didn't have these porn, ejaculate, squirting kind of.
That is such a great point, because either way it can create suffering, whether it's trying to attain this unrealistic ideal or the shame and embarrassment, like me not orgasming for 10 years, for a freaking decade, because some dude yelled at me for peeing on him when I was coming on him instead, right? So that's such an incredible point, the politics of pleasure. And what I love about sharing this information is erasing shame. When I learned that I could have like creamy cum, all over my yoni, and that was a sign of orgasm, I was like, okay, so instead of being embarrassed and thinking I had discharge, I realized, oh, this is cum, this is great. So I could relax and enjoy my experience of sexual stimulation and connection and pleasure that much more. So that's why we share this information with all of you, so that you can relax and just let your body secrete.
I mean, when you use the word discharge for women, like our concept of discharge, like we've been taught all our lives, like, like check your discharge, it's like, it's connected to disease, a yeast infection or some kind of infection. What color is it? How does it smell? So there's very little conversation around like what healthy discharge looks like, first of all, so like kind of our mindset is that discharge, something wrong.
Yes, or something gross.
Exactly.
Embarrassing, undesirable.
Well, and I would say too, even if you are ejaculating, I think this is especially important for the person who's offering the pleasure. Even if their partner is ejaculating, they may not be orgasming.
Yes, good point, Rosie.
That's a very, binary kind of male idea that the ejaculate means orgasm. And I know for myself, often, like when I'm squirting, when I squirt every time, I'm squatting on the floor, taking out my yoni balls, and there is no orgasm involved. It's actually a big pain in the ass. Mess in my bathroom, I'll tell you that much. But I think it's really important that people check in, like, this is about communication. So removing shame so that our bodies can just do what they're fucking meant to do. And also communicating, not making a story that this means that, communicating with that individual that you are making love with.
Yes. Yeah. It can mean this, or maybe not, right? Or it's just, what the body's doing. Yeah. Wonderful point. Wonderful point. Well, we are out of time for today. It's been a delightful and fun conversation. And very informative, as these things are. So I want to thank my wonderful colleagues for joining me today, this afternoon. I want to thank, or this evening. I want to thank all of you listeners out there for tuning in every week and for making Sex is Medicine the 2021 winner of the live web series for ASECT, and all of my colleagues who also made that happen. And so before we sign off, where can people find you again, Miss Rosie?
rosiebits.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Rosie Bits. You will find me. I'm around.
Yay. How about you, Lucia? One more time.
Yeah, you can pretty much just Google my name and on all the social media accounts, but my website is also embodied elements with a -wp.com.
Beautiful. And Karen Craig.
ExploreTantra.com and all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is Explore Tantra.
Wonderful. And of course, you can find Miss Devi Ward Erickson at authentictantra.com. I will have a new website coming up at deviwardtantra.com that you should look at because it's very, very shiny and sparkly. And make sure that you catch me on VH1 Love and Hip Hop Couples Retreat on May 17th. I have no idea what I'm going to look like in that episode, so I hope it's good. Hope it made me look good. But that's coming up soon. And yeah, once again, you can stay connected with with us on all of our social media platforms at Authentic Tantra. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful night. And I look forward to connecting with you all next week for another awesome episode of Sex is Medicine.